Yeah, started.
Thank you, Simon. I would like to call to order the meeting, the regular meeting of the Hartford Subcommittee of the MARB. Today it's January 23rd and the time is 10:04. As far as opening remarks, I would say Happy New Year to everybody, and it's good to see you. It's been some time since we had a Hartford Subcommittee. I might be a little rusty today, since it's been a while since I have chaired on behalf of Secretary Beckham. So I do want to say Happy New Year. And the only other comment, which I will probably skip ahead on, is I do see a new member joining us from Hartford, Caitlin Richard. So Paul Foster, I'm going to ask you to do an introduction and introduce Caitlin, and she can tell us where her background.
Sure, thank you. And we're very excited. I'm very excited that Caitlin has joined us. Caitlin joined early December, so she's still early days, although she has very much hit the ground running, and we're diving into our FY26 budget process. And so I won't do all of her introduction for her. I can certainly let Caitlin can speak for herself in terms of her background and the work she was doing prior to coming to us in Hartford. But we're certainly, again, very happy to have Caitlin with us.
Thank you. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Paul. Nice to meet everyone. Excited to be here. I most recently was in Tulsa Public Schools in Tulsa, Oklahoma as the budget director there. And prior to that, I was a consultant working at Education Resource Strategies. So I worked with districts all over the country on resource use. So I'm really excited to be in Hartford. I'm very aligned to a lot of the strategic work that's happening there around connecting budget to some of the strategic priorities and just improving some of our financial processes. So I've really enjoyed my 2 months so far and excited to be here.
Welcome. Thank you. Over to my co-chair, Kevin Alvarez, to see if you have any other opening comments.
I do not, but also just wanted to say welcome and Happy New Year to everybody. And Caitlin, it's great to be working with you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the minutes, but I do not know if Mr. White has joined us. If he has, I would say please speak up. I do not see that. So I'm going to suggest that we move the approval of the minutes until later in this meeting today. And then we can move on to, and because Hartford is a Tier 2 municipality, we really don't have any other items that we would be looking to approve today from this committee. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3 and the presentation of the fiscal year 2024 audit reports. And I know that Leslie Zoll is with us today, a partner at Clifton Larson and Allen, who oversees the audit for the city of Hartford. But before we ask her for her presentation, I'll see if Leanne or the city has any other comments that they would like to, opening comments prior to the presentation.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Leanne Rawls from the city. So just a brief overview on how this year's audit went. It went smoother than 2023, that's for sure. But we've always had great teamwork with CLA and Leslie and Grace, who is with us through all of the field work and through all stages of the audit. It went pretty smoothly this year. A couple of bumps on the road, just waiting on information here and there, but otherwise it was pretty much smooth sailing. So thankful to CLA for their partnership in getting us across the line and filed in time with the state.
That's great news. Thank you. Leslie, over to you.
Can I share my screen, Kim?
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Zoll. As you guys have already kind of introduced me, I'm the partner for the city. I also have with me my colleague, Grace Musuita, who's going to talk about the single audits. I'm not sure how much experience the board has on the financial statements, so I'll just do a brief overview of what our scope is, then go through some of our financial highlights. And Grace is going to talk about the single audits, and just some general information about the financial statements. So I'm going to begin. So in terms of our audit scope, we opine on the basic financial statements to make sure that they're in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We do not opine on the Hartford Parking Authority, the component unit for the city. That's done by another auditor. There is some requirements that we do on the back end, just in confirmation with that audit firm, to just make sure there's no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in that component unit that we would need to know about, but we do not opine on that. We do express an opinion in relation to the financial statements, the schedule of federal awards and state financial assistance. In terms of the major programs within the federal and state single audits, we do opine on compliance for those major programs, and also compliance with the financial statements overall in accordance with Yellow Book. In terms of internal control, we do not opine on internal control, but we are required to share with the city and those charged with governance that if there is any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we found during the course of our audit. And we would do that in relation to the financial statements as a whole, and also the major programs that we test on the federal and state single audit level. This is our executive summary of audit results for the city of Hartford. Clean opinions all around. Financial statements, federal and state single audit, all received unmodified opinions. That's what you would want to receive each and every year. Hartford has done so in 2024. In terms of internal control, there was no material weaknesses or no significant deficiencies noted on the financial statements or the single audits. So clean opinions all around. Just to give you some snapshots of the financial statements themselves, I like to do a PowerPoint instead of trying to go through a 150-page document, but stop me if you have any questions along the way. This particular schedule on this slide is of the basic financial statements, the statement of net position. It shows governmental activities, which are all your governmental funds, but on a full accrual basis of accounting. So we've added in from the fund level, we've added in long-term receivables and payables. To convert that to full accrual basis of accounting, it does not include any pension or OPEB trust funds in that column. Net position increased 170 million from 741 million to 911. You can see that on the bottom of that table. And a lot of that increase was due to increase in capital assets of 89.7 million, along with long-term debt decrease of 123 million. Total net position for the city in the governmental activities column is 911 million. Then that business type column, that second column on that table, is all of the enterprise funds combined on a full accrual basis of accounting. And that net position decreased 462,000 from last year. And again, that component unit, that Hartford Parking Authority that was audited by other auditors, revenues and expenditures were 7.3 million during the year. Then I'm moving on to the fund financial statements. These are on a modified basis of accrual. And we're gonna look at the general fund first and then all the other major funds within the city. You'll see now that I've shown the balance sheet for the general fund. Fund balance increased 14 million from the previous fiscal year. It's now 73.4 million as of 6/30/2024. Budgetary expenditures were $1 million less than budgeted. budgetary revenues were 19.1 more. So on a budgetary basis, Hartford did very well in 2024. Tax collections stayed pretty steady. A little bit of an increase, 95.22% in the current levy. Or grand list, I mean. And then the other parts of the fund financial statements are the major funds within the city: capital improvement fund, community development, debt service, ed grants, ARPA, and miscellaneous grants. Just to give you a snapshot of the activity that happened in Hartford in 2024, capital improvement fund decreased 39.7 million. It is now in a deficit. However, if you can see there the unavailable revenue of the receivables of the 131 million, and you have some unearned revenue of 33 million. So obviously, once that revenue gets recognized, that deficit will deplete. Fund balance for the community development loan and grant fund decreased 757,000 for the year. Debt service decreased 369,000. We have ed grants decreasing 3.2 million. The ARPA fund normally does not have a fund balance. Currently at 6/30/2024, there's 7 million left. That needed to be obligated by 12/31/24, so that'll eventually go away and that funding will deplete. Miscellaneous grants fund, that increased 1.9 million from last year. And then just for your information, that non-major governmental funds column is accumulation of smaller funds within the city. So that's kind of like a total column. And there's detail in the back of the ACFR that shows what those funds are. Collectively, fund balance increased 7.1 million in total of all those smaller funds. And then on to the proprietary type funds of the city. This shows your enterprise funds. And that total ties back to the government-wide statements that I showed you earlier. And then that column all the way over to the right is the internal service funds. That's a total column of the 5 internal service funds that you have, that the City of Hartford has. So just briefly to share with you the activity for the year: workers' comp increased 28,000. Liability and property damage decreased 400. Then you have your Metro Hartford increased 500. Retirees $523,000 increase, and then your actives net position decreased 3.7. And then finally, the last basic financial statement is on your fiduciary funds. If you want to look back at this presentation, I've left all of the page numbers so you can flip through the ACFR at your leisure. That pension and OPEB trust fund column, again, there's 5 different funds that are totaled in that column on the financial statements. The state plan, your city plan, the MRF plan, net position increased 48.7 million as a result of the increase in interest rates and the market. We're seeing that across the board in the state of Connecticut right now. And then the 3 next ones are pay as you go. There was, for your retirement allowance fund, 7,000 were contributed and paid. The Fireman's Relief Fund, 17,000 was contributed and paid. And then for the police fund, 110,000 of employer contributions and benefits were paid. And then you have your other post-employment benefit trust fund, and net position increased 1.3 million from the previous fiscal. So I just want to just share with you the activity in the OPEB and pension notes and disclosures in the ACFR. So for net OPEB liabilities, the city has a 6.48 million, which is 1.16% funded. The Board of Ed
We are
has an
sorry,
asset.
there is no tone. Press star to
The Board of Ed had $1.9 million of a net pension asset, so that's 108% funded as of 6/30/24. And then on the pension side, the city MRF plan has a liability of 500 million. That's 69% funded as of 6/30. The three next plans again are pay as you go. That liability is at 938,000. The 415 plan is 32,000. And then that last plan is the state's plan, the MERS plan. That's currently 69.54 funded. And that the Hartford share of that plan, that liability would be 46.4 million. And then I just wanted to show a chart on the improvements to the general fund post-COVID. So I'm from 2022 to 2024, you can see fund balance has increased tremendously from 2022, and that's a result of some pretty strong budgeting there. Revenues are increasing year over year. Obviously, expenditures are going up, inflation and just the economy in general in the state. But the fact that Hartford can still maintain that fund balance and increase it year over year is great to see. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements before I let Grace talk about the single audits?
Board members, I do have a few questions, but if there's anybody else. Okay. One question about the financial statements, Leslie. Is there any area of concern that you felt, even if it's a forward thinking or planning or high risk areas that you would like to bring to the attention of the board when you're looking at the financials? And if this is too soon and I should talk about this after you've completed the federal and the state audits, we can hold that question.
No, right now I don't think there's any areas of concern. I know the city is working on a plan to fund some of the older school construction grants. But the financial statements as a whole, there's nothing that really stands out that as a, major concern right now.
Okay, that's good news. From the Board of Ed side, the fund balance, I didn't quickly zone in on what that number is and if the portion of the fund balance, is that under the assigned column?
Yes.
Okay.
So the assigned fund balance, you mean the assigned, unassigned, you mean the Board of It? Why don't you repeat your question, Kim?
On the slide deck on page 8, if I look at the balance sheet and under the fund balance, there's an assigned column. Is that for the Board of Ed or is it committed?
It's committed,
Leanne,
Leslie.
can you speak to that? There's a footnote within the ACFR that breaks that out.
So the 741,000 is what's remaining of the Board of Ed's committed 2% of their budget. And then the assigned is from assignments that Mayor Aralumpalum made at the end of the fiscal year. All city related.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions?
One more on page 9. I think that you touched upon this, but on the balance sheet of governmental funds, the receivable that is noted there for the capital improvement fund, you said that that would go away when it's recognized. I just wasn't understanding where that receivable was coming from, just for clarity.
I think most of it's school construction, Leanne, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what
Or
happened
some
with,
smaller construction grants, Leslie, like, deep grants or
so
that.
Kim,
Mhm.
what I meant there was as the state money is slow to come in. So if
Okay.
it's not in by 60 days, we can't recognize that revenue in the financial statements. It's considered unavailable.
All right.
That's what the 131 is.
Thank you. And I understood as soon as you said school construction grants. That's helpful. Thank you. Any concern on page 10 with the internal service fund having a deficit? Do you think that I didn't do a comparison or a trend? Is this something that should be looked at for to be moved over to the general fund and covered, or a budgeting adjustment?
So that deficit is brought about because of the IBNR. So there's an estimate of future claims that haven't been realized yet. So most of that deficit is related to that estimate.
And we fund the claims when they're presented.
Okay, that's helpful. That's it for me. Any other questions from the board members? All right. Over to you, Leslie.
Okay, Grace.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Musitwa. I'm a director with CLA, and I help Leslie with the audit for the city of Hartford. Okay, so for the federal single audit, here is the summary from the federal single audit report that we issued for fiscal year 2024. So the total federal awards expended were 218.7 million. And the major programs we tested were Child Nutrition Cluster, Education Stabilization Fund, and the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. Like Leslie mentioned, we issued unmodified opinion on compliance for the major programs we tested, and there were no compliance or internal control findings for these programs. Next slide. Okay, so for the state single audit, the total state awards expended were 508.1 million. We tested the following major state programs: early care and education, management, magnet schools, priority school districts, tiered payment in lieu of taxes, and local capital improvement program. We issued unmodified opinion on compliance for these major programs we tested, and there were no compliance or internal control findings. Moving on to the governance communication, here is the summary of the information that was included in the governance letter that was sent to those charged with governance. So for the new standards, in fiscal year 24, GASB 100, accounting for changes and error corrections, was applicable. However, the city this standard did not have an impact on the financial statements of the city because we did not have any correction of errors. We are also happy to report today that there were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Another section we are required to report to you were the significant estimates that we identified during the audit. So we noted management estimate of the net pension liability, net pension asset, and also the net other post-employment benefit liability are all based on actuarial assumptions, which affect the liability at the year end. We also noted the estimate for the incurred but not reported claims, the IBNR for workers' comp, medical, dental, and general property liability is also based on the actuarial assumptions. And lastly, there was the management estimate of the value of alternative investments. These values are based on information provided by the investment custodians. So we also want to report to you that there were no disagreements with management, and as far as we know, management did not consult with other accountants. We are also happy to report that there were no uncorrected misstatements, and lastly, we did not have any independence issues while performing the audit. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Grace.
You're welcome.
The rest of these slides, I just wanted to go over some things that Hartford will need to look at in the coming years. So it might be beneficial for this board to know about them. GASB 101 on compensated absences is going to be applicable for fiscal year 25. So they will need to relook at that liability and make sure they're in compliance with that GASB. I don't think certain risk disclosures is going to be that big of an issue. It's going to just be more on the drafting of the financial statement side. And then in 2026, we do have the new financial reporting model. So things will definitely look different on the ACFRs in 2026, particularly in the presentation of the proprietary fund statements. So we'll be working with the city to make sure that they know what they need to do to look forward to that GASB as it comes due. And then the other future GASBs is going to be kind of be related to that financial new financial the model, the financial statement model on non-financial assets. Does anybody have any questions?
Any of the board members? I don't have any other questions.
I do have a small question. This is Charfan. I'm the Executive Director of Financial Management on the Board of Ed side.
On where? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
For Hartford Public School.
Okay.
The question is, has the single audit been filed with the Federal Clearinghouse yet?
Yes, it has.
Thank you.
Any other questions, even from the OPM staff, that I might have missed? All right, looks like you did a great job, and kudos to the city for meeting the filing requirements, because when the December 31st year end comes, Bill and his team always they get the questions from me is, okay, how many filed on time? How many filed on time? And the number keeps falling back from the 50% mark as years go on, and maybe coming out of COVID, I will say. So kudos to Hartford, because you're definitely a complex city, and I know that this is a major lift. So I'm very happy to hear that the outcomes were all positive, as well as no findings and areas of concern. And I know that that's a great working relationship, as well as with Leslie and your team's work to get this done. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are on to the next agenda item, which is other related business. And I have one item for other related business is over to the Board of Ed, just for a heads up on labor contracts. I know we don't approve them, and we might have requested this information just so that I could get an update, just to let us know, are those going to be foreseen completed? And my reason for that is, in the past, prior to your administration, they lagged, and they lagged a lot. And I know that your area has definitely done a great job to make sure that they stayed on top of that, but wanted to just get some feedback on that. Whatever you could share.
Yeah, so I can speak to, I mean, as you know, in November and December, we brought you the ratified administrator and teacher contracts. The three that are behind right now are paraeducators, security guards, and secretaries. Although I will say that we were bargaining with paraeducators last night, and we have multiple sessions scheduled with all three unions over the next 4 weeks. Okay. So I'm optimistic. I mean, I want to say by the end of February, but that's probably not real. But I'd love to think that by the March MARB meeting, we're bringing at least 2 of those 3, if not all 3. Okay. Although I think there's timelines for ratification and board approval before we bring it to you all. So I'm optimistic. I will say at least 2 of those unions, there was a little bit of a slow rolling of the bargaining on the part of the union, wanting to wait and see what we did with teachers.
Okay. Thank you. Over to the city, I know that 2 contracts, labor contracts, are up to expire or did expire, excuse me, as of December 31st, and just looking for an update there. If somebody can, and if not, then I'm willing to take that information by email after. Oh, are you waving to me, Lisa? Oh, okay. Go ahead. Thank you, Julian.
Those contracts are the firefighters union, and local 1716, which consists, primarily of public works employees. Both of those are in active negotiation. I can't give you an estimate of when they'll be resolved, but like I said, they're in active negotiation. Things have not stalled out. The communications are still ongoing. So, as we get a better read on that, we can give you additional updates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other related business that that this committee should be aware of or want to bring to our attention? I'm sure it's going to get pretty exciting as we are in session and all of the legislative changes and proposals that are out there. And I did see a few with Hartford's name on it. So I'm sure we'll be learning more about that. Hartford Subcommittee is scheduled for a meeting to review your budget May 1st, and so that is already scheduled. And then following that is the May 15th meeting for the follow-up of the budget. So when we talk about the budget on May 1st, we're going to do similar to what we did last year, which was to have the city and the Board of Ed bring it to our attention all at once. I'm not saying that we wouldn't be looking for updates along the way, because that at the full MARB meeting, the secretary will be asking for those updates. Paul, I know that you're on cue for that. And with that, I do not know if we have a quorum, but we didn't vote on anything. I would then.
Kim,
Yes,
sorry,
Simon.
Kim, I believe Mr. Weil joined by his phone.
Oh, he did. Okay.
So, Ms. Weil, if you want to speak, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Bob, can you hear us? Simon, can you take him off of mute and see if it does work on that external? Do you know if this phone number that we?
Unfortunately, I can't do that from my side.
Okay. Do you know if he joined us by the phone number that is not listed here with a name?
The only phone number I can see is that 860-836-944. Oh,
That's what
I'm
I see too.
sorry. But he did email us to said he's on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well,
Sorry.
maybe he can hear us, and but if he has any follow-up questions, then he can bring it to our attention, and we can always get it out to the city. And because I can't hear him, I would then propose that we move the minutes to the next meeting, and this way we will be certain that they will be approved accordingly. And with that, I would seek to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to
Thank you,
adjourn.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.